Morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to interview 2 of the interview series where we're discussing how yoga and meditation is influencing and affecting some really traumatic events that have happened in people's lives and certain diagnoses. So what I'm doing is interviewing adults that can really put language to these experiences. The reason I'm doing that is because children often, when they have experienced abuse or neglect or have autism or sensory processing disorders or ADHD or any other types of diagnoses, they find it difficult to put the language to their experiences and what they're feeling. So, however, to really understand what yoga and meditation does to the body in these circumstances, we really need to understand the power of what it means to be disconnected from our bodies and what it means to not be aware of our bodies and how we're feeling inside our bodies and what it means to feel unsafe in our bodies. That's a really foreign concept if we haven't had these experiences. So today I am speaking with Sonia. So let's just see if this is going to work for us. Good morning, Sonia. Good morning, Michelle. So it looks like let's just see. So it's looking like again, I can't add through this page. So I feel like there's something about the business page that's not letting me add people into the interviews. So what we might do again, which I really apologize for. Oh no, here we go. Sonia's all over it. Okay, so here comes Sonia. There we are. Good morning.
We're working. We're working.
How are you, Sonia?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Very good, thank you. So if you're still there, Michelle, or anybody else, if you can let us know if you can see Sonia and myself together, that would be awesome. Unfortunately, last week the replay doesn't show Michelle, which is unfortunate, but hopefully it will work better this time.
Okay.
So thanks for joining
Can you
me
hear
this
me?
morning. I can hear you
I
perfectly.
could, cool.
Yeah. Yes. So I guess, Sonia, why don't you just share a bit about yourself to everybody? Introduce yourself so that everybody gets a sense of who you are.
Okay, so I'm Sonia. I'm 45 years old. I have a 13-year-old daughter who has disability. She has Down syndrome and she's got a few heart medical issues. So she's had a
Mm-hmm.
fair bit of intervention, I suppose, medically. I've just finished doing my yoga teacher training in July down in Byron and sort of heading on a new path. I think that realization that yoga has benefited me so much with events that have happened in my life, and now utilizing that yoga or that experience to give back to members of the community that are marginalized and who don't have access or readily available access to yoga. So my mission at the moment is to engage with correctional facilities primarily and try to make yoga accessible to people in incarceration. So juveniles, men, women, people in detention centres as well, and also to other marginalised community members, people in domestic violence shelters or drug and alcohol rehab facilities where the benefit to them, I think, is probably even greater than the general population.
Yeah,
A lot of
sure.
the studies I've been doing lately just show, the research is showing, the evidence is there to say that it's quite beneficial and can be transformational. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, which is really exciting. And I suppose for you, that's really been your experience. So I suppose for you,
Yeah.
Sonia, and your journey throughout yoga, I mean, what was the event that led to quite a traumatic outcome and really severe impacts on your mindset and your body? What happened for you?
So for me, just over 15 years ago, I experienced the stillbirth of my twin sons. So it was a very traumatic time, the way it all unfolded. And essentially, I was 25 and a half weeks. And yeah, I ended up in hospital and I was told that my sons weren't alive. And then I had to go through, you know, medically forced to go through a natural birth, even though I voiced my desire to have, have a Caesar and what have you. I had to go through 13 hours of induced labor, with very physical force put upon my body that I had no control and no choice over, or at least it felt that way. So to the extent of, being put in stirrups and things like that, where you just totally got no control. And then being forced, because again, given the situation, just being forced to make these decisions about funerals and all sorts of things that totally unexpected and just really traumatic. It feels traumatic at the time, but yeah, 15 years later, you don't realize that the remnants of that trauma still carry in your body and in your mind. So yoga for me, I think about 2 years after the boys passed, I started doing yoga as a form of exercise, really. And
Okay.
yeah.
So for you, Sonia, I guess, how did that trauma show up in your body? What experiences did you have with that? Because I suppose with trauma and other experiences, when we're discussing how it influences the body and how it feels within your body, that's a really difficult thing for adults to understand when they haven't experienced something that you've gone through or something that children go through. So I guess, can you put some language to what it was like to feel unsafe in your body? Or I know you've mentioned to me you didn't trust your body. So I suppose, how was that trauma stuck and showing up in your body for you?
I think it was one of those things where I really dissociated with my body. It's like I didn't take care of myself, because I didn't think my body was worthy of taking care of, because I felt it had failed me. So I wasn't eating well. I probably put on a fair bit of weight. I think just that sort of soothing or numbing that you do via food, perhaps. So, and just not, it's really hard to explain, because just not feeling safe within my body, and then
Yeah,
feeling that my body was, or that myself was just this physical thing, and I couldn't. Yeah, it was like it the failure of my body had taken over everything else that I was, and I felt really defined by this experience, that this was my body and I let me and my sons down.
yeah,
So
sure.
it's a gut thing for me. Yeah, it is really hard to describe unless, yeah, you've been through something like that. Um, but
And
but
even for
then
you,
being able to utilize yoga to tune into my body again was what I found completely transformative for me.
yeah. So with your experience, Sonia, I know it led to a diagnosis of PTSD as well for you.
Yeah.
So what were the triggers for you, when you experience these, these anxiety provoking episodes, or what was the impact of having a diagnosis such as that because of this traumatic event? and
Well, the
experience?
diagnosis, yeah, the diagnosis only came a couple of years ago after seeing, a psychologist for a little while, and she said to me, "Oh, you've got PTSD. Like, it's no wonder you've got PTSD, pretty much. Like, this is all this stuff that you're talking about anxiety and depression and other areas of your life where, your mental health has impacted other areas of your life." She said, "Oh, and initially for me, that diagnosis was, oh yeah, well, this is great. You've given me this label, but what do I do with that now? Because a
Mm.
label to me, because my daughter's got a label, I think intellectually I'm like, well, I can't do anything with a label. Um, so initially it was a bit of a shock, and I sort of didn't want to accept a diagnosis. But I continued with therapy and what have you, and then just started tapping into, okay, well, it brings up these emotions or memories or what have you, or that dissociation with my body.
Mm.
Um, and I need to learn how to deal with that in a
Yeah.
way that to me is more effective.
Sure.
I
So
don't
you
know if
had
that answers your
experience.
question.
No, you did. You'd gone through, different types of therapy. So you went to psychiatrists and psychologists and tried to get some, talking therapy, really. That's what they are.
Yeah,
So,
and taking, my happy pill every day, and which I
yeah.
still do, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
But for
And so
me, every time I went to yoga was what grounded me and gave
I,
me a space to really be with myself and outside of my head. Yeah.
okay, so let's talk about that process for you then. So you started doing yoga just as a form of exercise. So
Yeah.
I guess when did it start showing up for you that it was having some really great therapeutic effects and some calming effects and really making a difference for you? What do you think was causing that for you through the process of yoga?
I think, like you say, initially I was going to yoga as a form of exercise, and then perhaps the language that was used by the teacher, um, that body awareness, that they help you focus on. Um, your breathing. Breathing was the biggest thing for me, because you think it's just a human thing that you do, but to actually focus on the breath and try to not discard what's coming in and out of the mind, but just to let it go and focus on something other than what's on your mind. So just focusing on your body and how your body's feeling, and bringing awareness to different parts of your body. And for me, you know, rightly or wrongly, I don't know how much truth there is to it, but all of the hip opening stuff um, seem to release a lot of emotions. And apparently that's where you carry your emotions. And I don't know if it was psychosomatic that they said it and it happened, but it was that for me. It was, and for me too, that womb area, where
Sure.
I
Yeah.
carried my children. Um, it was very emotional to go to yoga, but I think that's what I loved about it too. That
Sure.
in that space, as in those particular hip opening poses, I released so much that I was holding on to, that
Sure.
really no longer served me.
Yeah, exactly. And so what does a release feel like for you, Sonia? What did that feel like in your body? Was it that you felt so calm and relaxed, or was it a different effect for you?
I think like a physical thing was obviously tears, just bursting into tears, and it was a release. It was a
Yeah.
release and a shedding. Um, and yeah, my body physically feeling more relaxed. And even when I was in poses that were challenging, and that were pushing my limits a bit, it it sort of enabled me to find more determination about life in general.
Wow.
to go, I can push through this because this is
Mm.
nothing. I've been through so much worse that I can. So it gave me a bit of empowerment to go, yeah, I can do this. And it wasn't a physical thing. Oh, I'm flexible. I'm not flexible. Or it
Yeah.
was, this is a pain or a discomfort that I can withhold.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have to push it away. I can actually invite it in and encourage it
Mm.
in. Yeah,
Sure, sure. Okay. So some of the journey was about not uh, not repressing all of those emotions constantly, like you possibly
yeah,
had for many years. Just being
absolutely.
comfortable to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
don't think, I don't, like, I went to a lot of support groups for the loss of my children, and um, there was, you couldn't disengage from that. It was a good process for a period of time, but for a long time there, it also held me in that space of deep,
yeah.
deep grief. And so this was a way for me to release grief, a loss in a real physical way, and mental, but real physical, um, because it was a physical experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
And for you, I suppose you've continued with the yoga journey, obviously, and it's impacted you greatly enough to want to share it with other people, you know.
yeah.
So, in your everyday life, Sonia, is there a go-to strategy for you or something that comes to your mind every time you might start to feel a little bit triggered or, those impacts of what you've experienced? Is there something you turn to that really helps you every time?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because this morning I was feeling a little bit anxious, not so much about this, just in general. And I just laid on my bed and I did some yoga nidra. So just breathing and that body scanning, that bringing your awareness to the different parts of your body. And the first 5 minutes were difficult, because I felt my heart was racing and I just felt a bit edgy. And then I just, yep, kept focusing on my breath, and then almost forgot about focusing on my breath, which was good. I just was focusing on the different parts of the body, and I just felt so much better. And I think a lot of people do think that yoga is just the asana, the poses that we do. But for me, sometimes I don't have to do any poses. If I
Yeah.
just do some meditation and some breathing, that's yoga. That's my practice for the day. So, yeah, and sometimes I do need to do something physical to feel like I need to release some energy or push myself into a discomfort. That's that's okay. Yeah,
Okay, sure. And yeah, breathing is just so powerful. And I suppose with Yoga Nidra, if nobody has tried it before, I would really recommend giving it a go. It's probably the most powerful
yeah,
experience that I've ever had. The first time I tried
mm,
Yoga Nidra, I felt my legs were paralyzed. That's how powerful
yeah,
the mind is. I was terrified. So I would
yeah.
highly recommend it if you really feel like you want to start getting some control over your body reactions and sensations and what's going on inside your body and just becoming aware
And
of
it's
it.
only and it's only 20 minutes, like it's not like you have to go somewhere or dress some particular way, as long as you're
Yeah.
lying down. I've actually done it in the bath once. I was laying in the bath and did 20 minutes in the bath. It's like, it didn't matter where I was. So
Yeah, perfect, perfect. And for you, Sonia, I guess if people are considering yoga for themselves and for their children too. So obviously, kids yoga therapy is a service for children that have experienced trauma, various forms. So abuse and neglect and medical trauma, like I discussed last week, and various special needs. So for anybody that's considering it for themselves and their children, what would be your recommendation or advice if they're unsure if it's the way to go for them? What would you suggest?
Look, I'd suggest that there are some things that there's just no harm in trying, and I think, you know, if you do your research, you can see that there are so many benefits, and the benefits may not be obvious at first. Maybe it'll take a little bit of time, but maybe you might just see a little bit more calmness in your child. Um, and for a lot of kids, calmness doesn't come naturally, you know. Like I was saying, my daughter has special needs too, and Jess, you're seeing her now, but um, you know, I used to take her to yoga with me every Saturday morning when I lived down south, and she used to do 10 or 15 minutes, and I would notice a difference in her. You know, sometimes it was a bit of a drag, she didn't want to do it, but as soon as she was into it, she, I don't know, she just responded in different ways. And she's verbal and she talks and she can communicate and all that. But the body reacts so
Mm,
differently, I think. And her movement was different. Her ability to engage and focus throughout the rest of the day was different. Um,
okay.
so I think absolutely give it a go.
Mm,
You've got nothing to lose, and if you're unsure, speak to other people. I mean, my daughter does, they do 5 minutes of meditation every morning at school, you know, so there is absolutely no harm. It's not, and I think the other thing too, with the sort of work you're doing and that sort of trauma-informed yoga, is that, you know, the practitioners are really aware of what these kids have been through. So I know for my daughter, having a lot of medical intervention and various heart surgeries and stuff, and even having a lot of physical therapy when she was little, it was
mhm.
very much hands-on, pushing her, pinning her down. Really, she had absolutely no choices.
Yeah,
And this is a beautiful way of inviting them to choose and to have some control over their lives.
yeah,
And it's the
sure.
same for adults, you know. I mean, if yoga teachers use good language, they'll usually invite you to do stuff and not direct you. And I think for me as an adult, being told what to do in a traumatic experience has been
Yeah,
scarring.
yeah.
And no doubt it's the same for a child.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. And the language is such a crucial aspect of the trauma-informed yoga. It really is.
Mm,
And you're right, it's more of an invitation, um, and more than a dictation, because the loss of power and control is the fundamental aspect of
yeah,
what keeps the impacts of trauma trapped within your body. It's the loss of power and
yeah.
control over your body. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And if anybody's listening and wants to ask some more questions of either Sonia or myself, by all
Yep.
means, in the replay, just put some questions in and we'll make sure they're answered. And if you want to find out more about the trauma-informed yoga, if you've got children that are experiencing some impacts of trauma or other situations, if they've got certain special needs, then I'll pop my calendar, a link to my calendar down there, and you can just organise a complimentary call with me, ask any questions, and just see if this program is suitable for you. And if not, I'll be sure to put you in the right direction otherwise. So is there anything final that you want to share or say, Sonia, before we wrap up today?
Um, Not particularly. I just think that I think when you find something, and it doesn't have to be yoga, but when you find something that really um, brings you back in touch with your body, um, it's really important to listen to how your body is responding. Just in general, it's good to listen to how your body's responding, but just to know that, yeah, I think a holistic approach to anything, you know, it's no one's saying that you're going to stop taking medication just because you're doing this now. But, you know, you might not need other forms of therapy as much if you I think for me at least, if I'm doing something like yoga, I can access it any time of the day, whenever I want. I don't have to go to an appointment. Um, and I think that's what makes it even more beneficial, that you make it your
Mm.
own practice. And
That's
there's
right.
no
It's more
perfect, there's no, yeah.
yeah.
Then there's no competition in it. There's no competition in it. And I think it's not competitive. It's just your own thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sonia, for
No,
sharing and
thank
being
you.
open and vulnerable with your story and sharing that with everybody. I really do appreciate you spending your time with me this morning. And I look forward to
Thank you.
seeing all the exciting work that you will go on and do as well. It will be a really lovely
Yeah,
journey for you. Yeah, yeah.
fingers
So
crossed,
thank
fingers
you.
crossed.
And yeah, goodbye, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And remember to ask any questions, we will answer them. So thanks, Sonia, and goodbye,
Thank you.
everybody. See you
Thanks.
later. Bye.
Bye.